When one of our mothers, Sally, called in response to her son David, it was a very stressful time for her. David, who was entering pre-puberty and suffers from fairly severe autism, had started some aggressive behaviors, kicking and hitting teachers and his parents. He still remained very limited in verbal skills and was a very high safety risk. He would wander off and run away at school, and they were just really struggling as a family. She told me that it was very hard, but they often had to leave David behind as they took the rest of the family out because David just could not handle, the stimuli, or they weren't going to be able to keep him safe from doing harming behaviors to himself. One of the phone calls from Sally prior to David and Levi's graduation was David had just gone through a very significant med change, and in the process of that medicine change had become very psychotic, very, very violent, regressed in his behavior, was out of control. And she had called me very tearful, worried that he would not be able to tolerate the trip, or that he might be aggressive to the dog, or other people's safety, might be in jeopardy.
He'd hit, he'd kick, he'd bite, he'd stomp your feet, and he'd be continuous at this, and it was getting worse, and literally less than a month ago I thought I might have to put my child in a psychiatric hospital or group home placement. I'm not even sure I can get from Wisconsin to Tennessee to get this service dog, and yet when I'm sitting in the hospital room and I'm praying and thinking that this is exactly what he needs. He needs this dog more than ever to calm him down and help him in society.
Levi, who was an AKC Black Lab, was a great match for a young boy, a preteen boy. A lot of energy, a very large dog, 85 pounds, and a very outgoing, kind of slobbery, labby personality.
David, my son, who's now 10, has a fear of dogs and has always had a fear of dogs. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work very well. We've taken some time over the past couple of years to try to minimize the fear. 2 years ago, he'd see a dog far away, and even if the dog was just looking his way, he'd run away screaming.
We saw just in 1 week the miracle that these dogs can bring about. David took complete ownership of Levi, wanted to always be attached, gave Levi commands from day one. Now this is a child who has very limited verbal skills and has only really ever asked for just a few set things in his life, verbalize the need on a few set things. And he was telling the dog to sit and to come here and off and down on the very first day.
Give Levi an Eskimo kiss, an Eskimo kiss.
Can you tell us about Levi?
Levi is a black lab.
Yes. And
service dog.
He's your service dog. And how old is he?
Year and a half.
When David arrived, he was very aggressive. He was hitting and kicking our staff and his parents and running around the room and attempting to escape. And after a week, just 1 week of being attached to Levi, he rested quietly in the classroom. They played on the floor and gave kisses to each other and snuggled, and he was just almost a whole new child.
A month ago, David, I'm sorry. A month ago, David was in the hospital. He was violent. He was in restraints. He had chorea. I didn't know if we'd make him here. I didn't know if I'd have a child that would ever be in control of his behavior ever again. And 3 weeks later, I have a child who let me pay attention to class. I have a child who can be controlled in his episodes of outbursts and hitting and things that are not socially appropriate and dangerous. I have a tool that can control that. In 1 week, You guys have brought back my David to me. I didn't think I'd ever see him again. So thank you.
My day is done at 5. Your day is done at 5. When we go home, we sit in front of the TV, we read a book, and our day is done. And these families are never off. They are constantly having to watch their children. They are constantly having to struggle and constantly having to fight for the things that we just take for granted. And I have the utmost respect, and it is a complete privilege for me and the staff at Wilderwood. I feel it is such a privilege to work with these families, because these are America's heroes. These are the amazing people that keep this country what it is, because long after I've gone to bed, they're still struggling with this day after day, and the little part that we can do to help that is what we're all about.